So you're ready to buy your first property. You're really excited, but then you realize you have no idea what you actually have to spend throughout the transaction and when you have to spend it. Well, in today's video, I'm gonna share with you guys exactly what you spend and when, so you can budget appropriately. And when you're ready to buy, you'll be in a great position. If you guys don't know me, my name is Jankowitz. I'm a realtor in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts. I've closed over 300 transactions in the last 3 years. If you guys like this content, please hit that subscribe button in the link below. There's also a Calendly link in the description below, so feel free to do a free 15-minute consultation anytime. Let's get into the video. One quick caveat before we do get into the video, however, which is you need to understand that real estate is a hyper-local situation. Not only state to state, but even area to area. So what I'm about to get into is applicable for my area, which is Cambridge, Somerville, and surrounding towns. Understand that if you go out to Western Massachusetts, New Hampshire, California, there's often a different set of norms. But this information is very accurate for Cambridge, Somerville, and surrounding towns. So the way I like to think about where your costs come into play, there's basically 4 key areas. You have your offer deposit, you have your purchase and sale deposit, you have your inspection related fees, and then you have your closing costs and attorney related fees. So I'm gonna break down all 4 of those in detail, but just know those are the basic 4 high level areas where you generally are gonna be paying money. So the very first place where you're going to be paying for a fee is what I call the offer deposit. The offer deposit is basically a set amount that you agree to pay the sellers into escrow. It doesn't actually go to the sellers, it goes into escrow. We'll get into that in a second. But a set amount of money that you pay when your offer is accepted. In my market, generally it is between $1,000 and $10,000. And it's something to essentially bind the offer. So what you would do is when you write up an offer, you would write out a check for, say $1,000. Generally, most of the time it is held by the seller's brokerage and it goes into escrow, meaning it's basically floating in a bank account. It doesn't go in the seller's bank account, it doesn't go in your account, it goes into escrow floating around there. So when the offer is accepted, traditionally within 24 hours, that offer deposit then gets dropped off at the local brokerage most of the time, and then it goes into escrow and it's floating there. And it's just hanging around there until the deal closes. So that's the first thing that you would typically pay. Again, it's typically $1,000 to $10,000. I find most of the time it's $1,000, but there are scenarios where it might be more. The second place where you'll typically pay a fee would be around the inspection. So, full disclosure, it isn't easy to get an offer accepted with an inspection contingency. It's not impossible, but it certainly isn't easy. But if you do have an inspection contingency and that offer is then accepted, you are going to have to pay out of pocket for your home inspector. My experience, most home inspectors are around $500 to $1,000, occasionally seen a little higher than that, but usually that's the rough zone for the vast majority of home inspectors. You pay them that fee, it's gone forever, and you then have an inspection report, and you can then talk with the home inspector as well as your realtor to decide how you want to proceed. So if you did have a home inspection contingency, you would then pay that. And one other thing I guess that could also be clumped in here, again, this is rare in this market because frankly, buyers don't tend to have this kind of leverage. But if you did have the leverage and you could get other providers in there to further investigate things that come up in an inspection report, you would then pay them out of pocket as well. So if you needed to have an electrician to take a look at something or a plumber to look at something, you could pay that out of pocket too. Again, that doesn't typically happen in my market as of this video, but technically speaking, that would be sort of in the second chunk of things that you would be responsible for. All right, guys, so let's say your offer deposit is accepted. It's now in escrow. Let's say it's $1,000 in this example. Let's say you had an inspection contingency. You paid $700, $800 to your inspector. You looked at the report. You give the thumbs up. Now you're ready to sign the purchase and sale. Your attorney works with the other seller's attorney to negotiate the terms of the P&S. You sign the P&S. When you sign the P&S, you're going to do something very similar to the offer deposit, but put together what's called the P&S deposit, which is now the second deposit. Now, this deposit is typically going to be 5% of the purchase price minus the offer deposit. This example, the offer deposit, we're saying is $1,000. So let's say you have $1 million property, that's $50,000 minus $1,000, you have a $49,000 deposit. So now this is where the big money comes in, right? So you have to have $49,000. It's got to be in cash. You can do a cashier's check, you could do a money order, you could do a transfer. We have something called Deposit Link, which allows you to do it electronically. quickly, but you're now within 24 hours of P&S signing, you need to get that into the brokerage. And now both that offer deposit and the P&S deposit together are in escrow floating around ready for closing. So now you're at the closing table. We're at the final step of the process when it comes from a payment perspective. You've paid your offer deposit, you've paid your home inspector, you've paid your P&S deposit. Now you're at the closing table. So first of all, a quick note on down payments and how this all factors into it. So in this example, we paid 5%, right? We paid the 5% minus the $1,000 to combine our 5% of the purchase price. Let's stick to the $1 million example. So we paid 5%. Well, let's say you decided to do a 20% down payment totaling $200,000. Since you already have paid your offer deposit and P&S deposit for 5%, you now have 15% or $150,000 that you have to come up with in cash at the closing table. But that's not all. You still have to pay your attorney fees as well. That's generally about $1,000, seen $800, seen $1,200, but somewhere in $800 to $1,200 generally for your attorney fees. And then there's additional closing costs. You might have to pay for an appraisal. There's title costs. The bank will give you a statement which will break down all these costs. A general good rule of thumb is around 1% of purchase price. So around $1 million, you're looking at about an additional $10,000 in closing costs in addition to that 20% down payment. So in that example, if we have a 20% down payment at $200,000 plus around $10,000 of closing costs, all in, you're in for about $210,000. Again, these are rough estimates. You'll get a full breakdown from your loan officer explaining exactly what you owe at the closing table, what that final check is, but that basically is it. So just to quickly go over everything again, you have your offer deposit, which again is typically between $1,000 and $10,000, $1,000 being most typical. You have your inspection costs, if there are any, and plus any specialists. Inspections generally cost $600 to $1,200. You have your P&S deposit, which is typically 5% of purchase price minus your initial offer deposit. And then you have your closing costs. Good general rule of thumb is roughly 1%, but it will vary depending on the transaction, which you'll get a handful of days prior to your closing. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a better understanding of what you pay and when, so you're more informed and ready to go. If you guys have questions about this, if you have a unique situation you want to run by me, ping me on my Calendly. I have a free 15-minute link. Hit that subscribe button, hit me up on text or email, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.